Never have the opportunity to hear these people's voices without the work that Michael does. So it's a very small token of our gratitude that we're able to work with High Output and present you with a gift certificate, Michael. So if you could just come down front, I'd love to be able to turn this over to Allison Kuppels, who is here representing High Output, who has been our wonderful sponsor this year.
High Output is always excited to have the opportunity to support the local filmmaking community, and especially filmmakers like Michael Sheridan. We are New England's largest supplier of production services and equipment for theater, film, television, and special events. We are excited to be celebrating 30 years in 2016 and look forward to supporting the communities for many, many more years to come. So Michael, without further ado, thank you very much for all your hard work and for the wonderful work we saw tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Allison, and thank you, Michael. I'm going to turn this over to Cynthia Anderson, who is our moderator for the evening, and she will help to field questions from anyone in the audience. Thank you.
Please allow me to tell you a little about Michael Sheridan. For nearly 20 years, he's engaged the public in stories from Asia, Africa, and the Americas about people in developing communities challenging the status quo and working to improve their lives. He co-founded Oxfam America's documentary production unit in the mid-90s and has worked on media campaigns for Save the Children UK, Bread for the World, PACT, and other national and international organizations. Michael's documentaries have aired on PBS, ABC, TLC, and Discovery. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, Boston Cyber Arts Festival, GASP, and many other galleries have exhibited his experimental work. He's taught documentary and experimental filmmaking for 15 years at institutions including Northeastern, MassArt, and the former Boston Film and Video Foundation. Michael also teaches a video seminar at Harvard's Kennedy School, and during the 2007-08 academic year, he was a senior Fulbright scholar in Indonesia, teaching and working on new films. Michael Sheridan, we are just so happy to have you here with us tonight. Thank you.
Which I really appreciate. And thank you all for coming out. I just want, before I open it up for questions and answers, I want to really thank the festival organizers, volunteers, Alberto, April. I really appreciate showing at this festival because it's in the spirit of the grassroots and building up from the base. And you guys are just so dedicated to the film community around Boston and to bringing in international work and hosting discussions, and really appreciate that. And I know a lot of others do as well. Why don't we just find out what you might be curious about, if there are any questions or comments.
How involved were you in developing the structure of the stories that we saw?
Okay, so the question is how involved I was in developing the stories of the pieces that we saw. So just to give you a little bit of overview of how the training works, it's 5 weeks. The trainees come from some sort of filmmaking background. Very few of them had any background in filmmaking, but they were radio and print journalists, obviously radio being the most important and dominant form of communication and news and information in Haiti. There was a theater person, a writer, And so one of the requirements actually for them in the selection process is that they have a storytelling background. The other requirement is that they have some interest, some background demonstrated in social economic development issues. That's a particular interest of community-supported films, which is to get more stories told about these important issues around aid and development and economics from the local perspective. And they also have to demonstrate how are they going to use this later on. What practical avenues do they have to be able to put what they learn to use? I am proud to say, by the way, that there have been 3 short films that have come out since this, that the trainees, selection of the trainees have done themselves on their own initiative, and obviously in some ways mentored, but really on their own initiative. Now, during the training, they get 3 basic areas of education: visualizing with a camera, sound in cinema, how to use sound effectively for storytelling, and the principles of storytelling for film. And the stories that they develop go through what is typical in the documentary filmmaking world, a process of them doing their research. Obviously, we've defined criteria around the storytelling training, characters, situations and scenes, some kind of beginning, middle, and end, hopefully. And they go out, and obviously it's very intense, right? They're doing this the 3rd week of the training. And they find their stories, and then they have to write a treatment, which is they have to do a 1-page visual script of what we would see when the film is finished, what we would hear, what we would see. And they then have to read that and pitch their story to all of their cohorts and the other Asian trainers that are helping out. And I have to say, a lot of their stories end up on the cutting room floor before they even have a chance to get cut in the edit room. They pretty much, frankly, after week 3, they're giving each other such a hard time that I try and step in and cut a little slack to be realistic. Because they get the message, they understand what they're after, and they, especially in a place like Haiti, which they're very vociferous, they love to argue, and they love to argue very loudly, and they love to all speak at the same time, or yell at the same time. And so the discussions are very strong, and the critique is strong. Obviously, we contain it within a positive environment, but they really get a lot of help from each other. They then go out in pairs, one of them being responsible for the story, somebody else helping with the production aspects and do the production work. Of course, the editing is an extremely important aspect of documentary production, and that is dealt with in the training differently than everything else, in the sense that in these trainings, when I'm doing my pre-research and visits to the country, I go out, of course, and meet a lot of the media organizations, folks active in the issues and in filmmaking. And we bring in 4 folks who have some experience with editing. Fundamentally, they know how to operate an editing software. They have the capacity to work in a collaborative environment, and they, very importantly, come in and work with the trainees over the last 2 weeks in terms of, obviously, the filmmakers have to direct their edit, they have to prepare for the edit, they have to script the edit, etc., but they don't have to learn how to operate the software operate the technology. And that's how we get around that major hurdle.
Michael,
Yes.
how many minutes of video do the participants shoot to, say, wind up with an 8-minute film?
Right. It varies dramatically. For example, the piece of the street vendor, he had about 11 hours. He went out there and lived with that guy.
Right.
Now, others would more typically have 3 to 4, because they're making a lot of mistakes, you have to remember as well. And there's an incredible amount that they have to learn very, very fast, and they're expected to help each other out. Some are stronger with visualization, some are stronger technically, some are stronger with just story structure. So it is the team that allows them to break through in such a short amount of time to be able to complete a piece. John?
Yeah, hi.
I was wondering if you thought in advance whether you wanted the films targeted for an international audience or a local audience, and how you might have structured them differently depending on which was important.
Right. We make it, in the interviews, even when we're doing the selection process, we explain the project, and we do explain that we want both to be able to use the stories internationally and locally. But that should not be a constraint in terms of their interest. They do not have to come into the training with a story idea. They don't pitch stories in advance at all, because it would be quite illogical since many of them don't have any background in film, and frankly, the kind of stories that we would get pitched to us probably wouldn't be very appropriate, coming from the medium that they're working in. Interestingly, along that line, I went to Haiti partly with the idea that last year being the 5th anniversary of the earthquake, and this training was done in in the fall of 2014. 2015, January 12, was the 5th anniversary. And I went with the idea that it would be interesting to get a collection of films that spoke to Haitian perspectives around post-earthquake recovery. And as in every other project like this, I failed to learn my lesson. And day one, we're having opening discussions, presentations, introductions, and immediately I must admit, I'd already gotten this pushback before, and I had already understood that this would be an issue, but I wanted the trainees to confront it. They pushed back immediately and vociferously that they didn't want to be defined by an earthquake. They were tired of looking at Haiti from the perspective of an earthquake, and quite rightly, they wanted to open up the view beyond that. So you notice that, of course, I let go of that. 2 of the films address the earthquake somewhat directly, but the rest do not.
I think we'll have to end here. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
Please sign up if you're interested in getting on the mailing list, and if you're interested in the DVD, they are outside as well.